I finished my book last summer, so it took me about 2.5 years. It is about the first year of recovery, but it's not about my recovery. It's about the transformation, as we were talking about before, that's happened in this first year of recovery. It's meant to tell people everything that you're feeling is okay, that I see you, that we all see you, and don't let the demons get to you, because it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to, have your sister hang up on you. It's okay to throw, all your toys out of the pram, and but it's better the next day or not. You have to get back up and try it again.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello again, and welcome to episode 220 of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. If you're a stroke survivor with a story to share about your experience, come and join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do to qualify is to be a stroke survivor, care for someone who is a stroke survivor, or be one of the fabulous people that help stroke survivors overcome their condition. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the contact form, and as soon as I receive your request, I will respond with more details on how you can choose a time that works for you and me to meet over Zoom. Now, my guest today is Stacie Broek, who was living as an expat in Japan when at 46, she experienced a carotid artery dissection that left her with aphasia, the inability to walk, talk, read or write, but that didn't stop her from writing her first book, Alone, Thriving a Stroke, which is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Stacie Broek, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So for the people that don't know, why did I call you Trousers?
Yes, because my surname is Broek, which is in Dutch, trousers. So you can call me Stacie Trousers, Stacie Broek, Stacie Pants Alone, whatever.
Yeah, I love it. So thanks for being on the podcast. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Yeah, so I'm originally a Pennsylvania country girl, although I haven't lived in Pennsylvania for a few years, basically over 20 years. So my stroke happened in the center of Tokyo, where I was living with my family as an expat. So I was playing tennis 2 to 3 times a week. I didn't have any real concerns about my health. I was young. I was active. I ate well, and then all of a sudden, my stroke happened on a Wednesday, and on the Monday, I was playing tennis, and I started to see little spots where the ball should be. So I was reaching up to hit a smash, and all of a sudden, it went fuzzy and then white. And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe I just didn't eat enough for dinner, for breakfast. And then on Tuesday, the same thing. I was playing tennis, and I was seeing these little white spots where the ball should be. And so then this debilitating fatigue came over me, and I just wanted to take a nap. So I took a nap on the couch, waiting for my children to come home. And that's Tuesday night. I drove them to the family club because I just in the car, so I could have had that happen then. Luckily, it did not. And then Wednesday morning, I was getting ready to go to a PTA meeting, a Parents Teacher Association meeting, and it was a really big meeting for us. So we were presenting. Doesn't matter what we were presenting, but so and then I woke up with a dead leg on my right hand side, and I was like, what is this? What do I do? And I thought maybe I just slept wrong, or I didn't really know. So I just carried on with my normal routine, and then all of a sudden this fatigue is the only way. It was very debilitating. It was overtaking my entire being. And I just needed to lay down. So I asked my husband to take my youngest to the bus so I could just, pause for a moment before I went to the PTA meeting. I never made it to that meeting. I sat down on my bed to just, collect my thoughts. And then I thought to myself, I'm going to text Katja, my friend who I was meeting beforehand, just that I would be a little bit late because I couldn't meet her for coffee before the meeting. And then I was looking at this thing in my hand, and what was it? And what was I trying to do? It was my cell phone. I was like, ugh. And I just threw it away. I just threw it down and I went to sleep. And that's where my husband found me. He luckily was working from home that day or in the morning. And when he also gladly knew the signs of stroke. So he was looking at me and I knew that he was there, and I knew, I knew that he wanted me to respond to him. So he was saying, Stacy, can you say something? What's the password for your mobile phone? And because in his stress, he was trying to call the ambulance from my mobile phone, not knowing my password and the rest. And I knew that he was there, and I knew, he sounded like he wanted me to do something, right? But I was in fairyland. Yeah.
Wow. So you had a carotid artery dissection.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And was there any signs, now thinking back, was there any signs perhaps that maybe this thing was revealing itself earlier than that first time when you were playing tennis and you were seeing white spots in the sky? I had some signs, but they were not on the left side of my body. So I had a muscle ache here. So had I been more pit bullish to get that figured out, maybe I would have had an MRI and maybe they could have seen my dissection happening. But my doctors here now. I'm back in Zurich. My doctors here say that if I have ever a carotid artery dissection again, I will feel it. So you don't have to be afraid. You can do everything, not everything, but I can't play tennis. But they say to me that if you have a carotid artery dissection, you can normally feel this. I couldn't feel it. So up until the 2 days before, I didn't, there were no warning signs. Maybe just a strange ache on the other side of your body.
Yeah. So I'm normally an active person. I have 3 children as well. So and we were living in the center of Tokyo, so it could have been. So maybe my exhaustion was from my carotid artery dissection, or maybe it was just normal, things.
Yeah, that fatigue that you described is going to be very familiar with the stroke survivors listening, because I know about that fatigue, and everyone who's had a stroke knows about that fatigue. It's seriously all-consuming, and there is no way of fighting through it or pushing through it or making your brain work better. There's just no way. There's the only way to do anything is to rest a lot and to try and get some energy back in the batteries so you can go again, but then they don't last very long, and then you're back in the same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an inertia that just takes over your being. Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason to fight it.
Yeah. So you ended up in hospital, and then how long did you spend there, and what did they do to help you out?
So I spent 6 weeks in a Japanese hospital, and they were brilliant because the Japanese really they're so meticulous about everything, and that really helped me to understand. All of the language and the customs were definitely a barrier. I find that I was lucky in my unluckiness. But I was only the 11th person in Japan to have this operation that I had to have, because my carotid artery is redundant, which means it's curly or tortuous. So yeah, so they were trying to place a balloon in my carotid artery, but because of the redundancy, I think I can say that, redundancy, they had to go to plan B, which was an experimental approach, because I was only the number 11 person to have this operation in Japan. So all that to say that they didn't see me coming, right? So I was younger than most stroke patients, especially in Japan, because they're an aging population. And I was foreign. And even though I still suffer, but I was suffering immensely from aphasia. And the only word I could say was one, when those 6 weeks in the hospital, well, at the beginning of the 6 weeks, I also was making myself and my wants and needs very vocal for them, even though I couldn't speak. So they didn't really know what to do with me. But they wanted me to go to a stroke rehabilitation center after my 6-week hospital stay. Even through my fog, I knew that that wasn't for me. And I didn't know what was for me at that time. I just wanted, this was the first time that, so I started with speech therapy directly after my stroke, even before the 2nd week of my stroke, because in Japan, of course, speech therapy is done in Japanese. So I had to find a practitioner who could take me and who had time. And I'm still with Seth, my speech therapist, even today, 3.5 years beyond my stroke. So that's in the physiotherapy. I couldn't walk. I couldn't, I couldn't use the right side of my body. So they were very gentle in getting me the help that I needed. But they wanted me to go to a stroke rehab facility. And upon touring, the 2 of the leading rehab facilities in Japan, I knew that it wasn't for me.
Yeah, understand. It would be a little bit more difficult to have a stroke in a country where the language is foreign and the barriers of language and customs and all that stuff are just so immense, because you need familiarity at that time to help make you feel at least comfortable in what they're saying and understand what they're saying, and safe in some weird way, just because you're in a familiar environment, or you can have guests and friends come to see you. You were so far away from home. Were you able to have anyone other than your husband there to see you, to support you?
Yeah, so we were only in Japan for 1.5 years before my stroke. So, but Japan was an amazing place to have my stroke in that way, because all the expat community came together and they lifted me up. They were my village. They were my sparkly people. They cooked for my the 6 weeks that I was in the hospital. They all brought, it was like a revolving door in our home, with all the food that was brought. Every night someone would make my husband and my kids food, and that carried on. My stroke happened in February. That happened until the summer. So I was able to, because I recovered it from home eventually. So my friends and everyone just pitched in like they were my family. My mother came immediately to take care of the children, to take care of me, to take care of Johan, my husband. But she could only stay, I think, for 2 weeks or something like this. So my girlfriend that I mentioned before, Katja, she stepped in, and her family stepped in. So that was much. Now I feel like Katya is much more than a sister. She's much more than a friend. She's my girl. She's my woman. She's
Yeah.
my go-to. Yeah, and I think that's what the amazing or the lucky thing was about having it in Japan. Okay, we couldn't be next to our family, but even if I had my stroke in Zurich, where it is my home base now, I wouldn't be next to my family. So
Mm,
that was really a lucky thing to have it there. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. That would have been much more relieving than being completely alone in that country, even though if it's just your husband, because then you somehow have to deal with the kids and all that stuff. So it's great to hear that the expat community came together and rallied around you guys and supported you guys. That's fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
So, how long did you spend in hospital overall?
6 weeks, and then I had because of my stroke severity level, and because I still needed 24-hour care. After the 6 weeks, we had a nurse come. She didn't live with us, but she was there 7 days a week. Yeah, when my husband couldn't be there for sure, and yeah, to make sure that we still felt this level of safety, because it was scary to go home, as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did they? How did they get to that artery? Did they have to operate through your skull, through the back of your neck? How did they actually get in there?
They went in through my thigh, I guess you say that.
Yeah,
Here,
one of
yeah,
your
and then
arteries.
and they how do you say that? It's like when you have an angiogram. Yeah,
Yes,
they stick it up through yeah, that one.
yeah, that
They
little
wiggle it up.
squiggly thing that wiggles up and goes past your heart and goes all the way up into the neck, and they addressed it from there. Okay, so I've had an angiogram,
Yeah.
and that went straight into the brain, and that was intense experience to feel some of that and what was going on. But it is rather, it's although it's definitely invasive, it's rather minimally invasive compared to opening up the back of your neck or your head. And then I imagine the recovery in at least in that stage is a bit quicker. Now I see you shrugging, and you can't imagine people having had brain surgery or anything like that.
Oh no, I really can't.
Yeah, so you don't do scars, you can't do blood and all that kind of stuff. You're not that kind of person.
Well, no, I'm not. But my son recently broke his bad break playing football, and I had to clean his wounds. He had an open cast, so I had every day I had. But I did it because yeah, that's what you do when
You're
you
a
love
mum.
someone. Yeah, you're a mom. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. So
I
I
love
don't
it.
like it, but I can.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it sounds like a couple of things went your way. You didn't have to have anyone do anything to your hair or your head specifically. You had your family around. So a few silver linings there in your,
Yeah.
well, seriously difficult, unfortunate. I'm not sure how you would describe the experience, but for me, it was traumatic. For me, it was, challenging because I had to question my mortality and all that kind of stuff. Was there any of that stuff running through your head? Did you ever go there? What was it like for you to be supposedly fit and well and then experience this near, well, this life challenging moment?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I had this, I always thought that I would die an accident or something gone wrong, or, skydiving. I would never skydive, but, something beyond my control, that's what I thought. And now I had a carotid artery dissection, which caused a stroke, which was near fatal, and I should have died. And so then you have these questions, right? You don't know. And so the first few months were hard that way because this insecurity that I felt. And then the first year was a little bit painful, but I worked through this with my speech therapist. Seth was really instrumental in, because also in Japan you don't have any, you know, counselors or case managers, or so he was like everything to me, because he also suffered a brain injury in his 20s, so, and he's my age, so we had this camaraderie that's so it was really special. It is really special. So he, every time I was particularly afraid, or any time I was panicking, then we would just write down the worst thing that would happen. If the worst thing of the worst thing of the worst thing happened, what was that? So I can remember, to give you an example, about 3 months in from my hospital stay, I went back to the doctor for a regular scheduled MRI. And my neurosurgeon told me that they would have to perform another angiogram to figure out what's happening, because it wasn't quite clear. And for me, this felt like a death sentence, right? So I was really, and now it's like, okay, you can survive it, right? But at this time, it felt like the world was going to collapse, because the last time I went for an angiogram, this happened, right? So, so it was really, so Seth said to me, well, what is the worst thing that can happen? I wasn't afraid of dying. I wasn't afraid of, because I had, once you survive something like this, then death is more, you can understand death a little bit better, right? Mm-hmm. So I was really afraid of dying, but I was really afraid to have it happen in front of my children, and to let them, make them experience this. So that was what I was ultimately scared of. So we put measures into place to make sure that, not to make sure, but to, not to make sure, because you're never sure, but that wouldn't happen so easily.
To minimize the possibility that might happen.
So
did that give you a little bit of control back? Did you feel like at least you were control of the process going forward?
Absolutely. And that's what I try to do. I just try to, even today, I try to see the silver lining. It's not always possible. Sometimes you wake up and you should just go back to bed, for sure. But I really try to see all the silver linings, because I'm alive, and let's celebrate it,
Yeah, that's a good start. Absolutely. Yeah. I know how you feel. So your husband, how is he doing? He had to experience and witness all of this, and he would have felt completely helpless, because he's not in control of what's happening to you. And even though he would definitely want to help you, and he's trying to help you, he can't make you better. He can only do those peripheral things. How is he? How is he? How did he experience this? What has he told you about his version of the experience?
Yeah, so my husband is a very great, gracious Dutch guy. I mean, he loves life and loves living it, and this experience has made him more not cautious. It's brought his loving life not down a little bit, but he's more aware of the how perilous or precious life is. We were in Japan for his job, so of course that's it. He was able to get on with his work in a shadowed perspective, but I think it does something to him. So my surgery was 10.5 hours long. And at a certain point, when they were trying to place a balloon into the carotid artery, they came to him and they said, "Look, it's not working. Can we have your permission to try an experimental approach?" And they explained what they were going to do to him. Oh, to me, not to him. And I can't imagine what this did to him, because he's a happy-go-lucky guy. I mean, he's just that way. And he said a very important question. He said, would you do this if it were your wife? And Dr. Ichi-san said, yes, and I would also do it if it were my daughter. So, but I don't, and then he was permitted to enter the surgery to see me hopefully not for the last time, but could be. And I don't know what that does to him. If you would have bumped into him on the street, the weeks after my stroke, he wouldn't even be able to say stroke. He would have to say, she's in the hospital for, if he couldn't get it out. It was a mental block for him. So, but, little by little, because he also was my primary caregiver. So it does something to anyone. Also, to Johan. I think also going through this life-changing experience shines a bright spotlight down on every one of your flaws, both as an individual and as couples, of course. And I wasn't easy the first year. I'm not easy anyway. So, so I think, he's been through a lot.
Congratulations for admitting that you're not easy. While we're admitting things, I'd like to also admit that I'm not easy, but I'm bloody doing my best to get better all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm succeeding or not, but I don't know. Like, it's like happiness, being better. You don't become it. You're always striving to be it.
Absolutely.
And you try and live it, and you just head that way. So
absolutely,
I was motivated to be better after the stroke, of course, because I wanted to turn up better at my house, at my family events, at everywhere. I wanted to turn up at work. And that's because I thought I might not make it to 40, because my stroke was at 37, right? So I had to mend a lot. I did a real big, deep internal search for answers or clues as to what might be doing wrong or where I might improve. And that's what I worked on, so that I could at least achieve gain some type of improvement, and then show the kids and my wife and whoever that there was this change, this shift in me, that I had intended to get better, and I had these intentions, right? This ability to prove that you're hard or difficult in, this personal way, like humans are and can be, is that something that you were aware of before the stroke, or is that a new awakening that you've had?
Absolutely. I was always the person that said, "Oh, the card's in the mail," or and scoffed at waitresses, or I didn't see that side of me. I was a career girl. I was going for it, and I just thought that was how you lived your life. So I fully agree with you. I'm nodding my head in connection with you, because after my stroke, it was in December. I had a conversation with my sister from Pennsylvania, and it didn't go well. It ended up with her slamming down the phone and cutting off all ties with me. And that's the final straw, let's say, for me to, I went deep inside myself like you. And I was collecting everything that I could. I went into a shell, to, I think that the bright side of my stroke was that moment I realized that I'm hurting people, people that I love, people that I don't know, everyone. So I did a lot of work on myself, and yeah, some days I do it well. You're right. I get up, I write in my journal, I do my mantras, and everything's bright, shiny, stroke survivorness. But some days I do a crappy, lousy, crappy job of it. Yeah. But yeah, it's a work in progress, like you said. And yeah, it's now I see, yeah, I have some models, if you can say that, of how I want to live my life. And I just strive every day for that.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Yeah, that's a good thing to strive for. I just want to try and see if I can understand what was it specifically that shifted it for you. Yes, it was the event of the stroke and all the things that came with that, but was there something that you gained? Was there an insight or some knowledge that you gained that allowed you to see the fact that you were this person that you now noticed wasn't the nicest all the time or was short with waitresses? Is there something that made you see that because of the stroke? Was it because of the stroke that something occurred and made you aware of that?
I think it was a series of events. I think my friends, the expat community, also chipping in. It was showing me this kindness. My best friend from New York flew over. My mother flying over. It was a series of events, and then probably culminating. I can remember actually my best friend from New York. She came just before the summer, and I was really stressing because she was coming. That was a major stress for me. And then I had just a week before we were going to fly for the first time to back to Switzerland. So I was very stressed, and I know that you guys know this, but because it's a stress that you just can't do anything about, right? How do I pack my bags? How does this process work? But Kara, bless her, she asked me this question, what are you stressed about? You seem really stressed. I said, I don't know how to pack my bag. I don't know how to pack the bags of the children. So she sat one night and packed everyone to go to Zurich. So I think that's that act of kindness that you just have to ask and someone will help me. I mean, what the heck? Oh my God. So yeah, so that I think there was a series of kindnesses, and then culminating with my sister just hanging up the phone, calling me a bitch and a bully, and saying, I don't want anything to do with you or your family. I'm done, And that's probably the catalyst.
Wow.
I think it was a series of events ending.
Did you also, because this is, now I'm going to describe me, tell me if you relate to this. Did you also notice yourself as being the person that if that happened to somebody else, the stroke thing, you may not have been as forthcoming as and as supportive as other people had been to you? Is that what you realized? Because I realized that about me.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I have exactly the opposite. I'm a good friend if you need me, but if you don't need me, I might not call you for months, or so I'm that kind of friend. So I'm a friend in need, but the everyday,
Small stuff.
yeah, it's lost on me. It was lost on me. So I'm trying to be better that way. Because if you need me, I'll come everywhere for you. But if you don't need me, eh. So I'm trying to, yeah. So that's funny. Yeah. I'm
Interesting.
the
And I
exact
think that
opposite. Yeah.
the people who don't express that they need you more. That's what I've found. I've got some friends who I really need. And because I really need them, I give them the space so I don't become overbearing on them, and I let them come to me. And from time to time, I let them know that I'm here, you know. I don't judge them because they're busy, etc. And perhaps they haven't been through a moment like we've been through, and their awareness of the situation is different. We're both very close to each other, and we really, truly respect and appreciate each other. But I describe him as being elusive to be able to pin down in one location so we can do things. And his partner will say to me, let's organize to catch up. And I'll say, I've been trying to for months, but he's elusive. I can't pin him down. He makes it sound like he's always doing something and busy. She says, we hardly ever do anything. And I realize that it's just his process, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know what's stopping him. So I don't know how to approach it any other way, but so I'm giving him space, right? However, that's how he was before the stroke. That's how he always was. So it's not new. But what was different is when I had the stroke, he was there. Out of nowhere, he was there all the time. When I needed him, he picked me up. He decided to create his own swimming rehabilitation for me, and he took me to the local swimming pool once a week for about 10 weeks or something. And we had a hot sauna, we had a swimming session, we had all these sessions. And he's not a rehabilitation person. He's a Excel spreadsheet kind of guy. So it was kind of like, who is this person? Where are you coming from? And of course, I'm so totally appreciative of that now I want to be around him, you know, I want to have him near me, you know? But
I fully understand.
I don't want to choke him with my love and affection. So I give it to him in short doses, because he finds it difficult to accept praise. When I say that you're responsible for a lot of my recovery, he finds it difficult to deal with that. I don't know why, but it's strange, right? So they're the
absolutely
kinds of things that happened to me that made me think about, would I have done the same thing for him? Because I think even though he was unwell, I would have judged him that he was elusive, and I think I might have been standoffish and just let him do his own thing instead of rally around him to the extent that perhaps, you know, hopefully he never does, but may have needed me. So I also started to relate to people when I had to spend time in a wheelchair. That really opened my eyes to the people who were previously invisible to me, the people who I thought were just sitting down. Because that's how naive I was. I thought, well, they're just sitting down. I mean, it can't be that bad. I mean, my God, you know, what a stupid conclusion to reach.
Yeah.
But that's how naive and how unaware of other people's struggles and challenges I was. I spent about a month in a wheelchair, and I struggled to do everything for a month. And then I was lucky that I didn't need to remain in a wheelchair. But that whole month, I was thinking of every other person that I'd come across that was in one that I neglected to be empathic towards.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
They're big life-changing moments, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the same thing for language, because when I was living in New York, I didn't understand why people would move to a country and not speak the language. I didn't understand it at all. Now I'm living in Switzerland. Can I speak the language? Huh? Japan, so it's also this, you see other people's struggles, you see their side. It's very eye-opening.
In amongst all of that, so you're recovering from aphasia, you're in speech therapy, and somehow you're doing a blog. Now, is putting words on the screen or on paper easier for you than speaking them, or is there some difficulty with that as well?
Yeah, so I also suffered from agraphia. But I'm a writer, so I was a writer, and I still am a writer. So writing is my passion. This is what gets me out of bed in the morning. So to lose that, and the doctors secretly told my husband that I should look for a new profession, because I'm definitely not going to be a writer again in the hospital in Japan. So I'm really lucky that he didn't tell me that until after my first book the second draft of my first book was done. So I'm really happy. But so I suffered with agraphia too. So that my speech therapist, I can also remember the day that we were on. It was the interview with Seth, and it was virtual, and I was with my husband, and in talking to each other, my husband told Seth that I was a writer, and I was so mad at him. I'm like, you can't say this, you can't. And I couldn't say it, but I was like, you don't, my body language was all erratic, and I was very mad at him because I couldn't even speak. So how could I write anything? But Seth, bless him, we spend 2 hours a day, each day, 7 days a week, on my writing. So maybe one word, maybe one sentence an hour would come out of me. And then little by little, bit by bit, paragraph by paragraph, I started to write. Now, I still can't read. I can, but by the time I get to the end of the sentence, it's a little bit blurry what happened in the beginning of the sentence, although I just published my first book. So that's funny, right? But Seth will read it back to me, or I have, I have a lot of, So
that is fascinating. That's fascinating that you have struggle remembering what you've just read, but you can write a book and you can finish a sentence or a paragraph. And you also had the aphasia aspect of it. So somehow in there still the fire for writing a book's burning, and it's still enabling you to somehow navigate all of these complex things that you took for granted previously as being easy. And it must have been one of the hardest things to do is write a book. As far as when did you compare? Did you ever do, oh my God, I'm terrible, why am I doing this? Because I used to be so good at it. Did you ever compare yourself and make yourself feel bad about the fact that writing now had become more challenging than it used to be?
It's funny. I look at it a different way. I thought to myself, why? Thank God for my stroke, because that was my impetus to actually write my book.
Mhm.
It gave me it gave me the subject matter, but two, I don't know if I would have written my book if I didn't suffer my stroke. I think it was my catalyst. It was my impetus to actually do it and get down and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this." And if I didn't suffer my stroke or survive my stroke, I probably would still be hemming and hawing about what subject matter to write about. So it's funny. Yeah.
I like it. I like that because I can relate to that, because it's exactly the same thing. I said it on a couple of podcasts ago. I think on the last episode or the one before, I said to the person I was chatting to that I always felt that I had a reason, something to say, but I never said much because I didn't have an expertise that I could
Yes.
embrace and speak about as an expert in my own right, and that I therefore couldn't relate to other people, and therefore my speaking for the sake of speaking, like a lot of people do these days, wasn't really going to be joyful for me, but it also wasn't going to reach the right people. It wasn't going to impact people,
Yes.
and wasn't going to it wasn't going to be purposeful. So why do it? What's the point? And the stroke made it possible for me to find that group of people. Your group is my group, and the group that other people belong to who have had a stroke, who have been previously on this podcast, who listen to this, and now my voice is lending, has a purpose towards bringing us together, helping us understand, helping us relate, helping us not feel alone. And then also really important, which I didn't realize was going to be really important, was helping other people like you get their story out and share their story, even if it's not a book, even if it's not a podcast, even if it's just they're never going to do it ever again, but they came on and once they expressed it to other people who completely understand them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can only fully agree with you. Yeah.
And the book wasn't ready to come out until you had to have this life experience. And even though you lived the life of a mum, of a super productive person, a wife, a sister, all these things, even though you did all of that, you perhaps were lacking meaningful life experience. And therefore the words that you were going to put down didn't feel like they were genuine or something.
Absolutely. I found my calling. Yeah. I somehow I found what I was. Okay. I was meant to be a wife. I was meant to be a mother, a daughter, whatever. But more than that, for me, I found what my purpose is. I'm passionate about my writing, but also making sure that other stroke survivors can get up the courage every day to fight, because someone needs to hear that, right? And that's my passion. It's make sure that we don't lose any. The doctors, the neurosurgeons are fantastic at saving our lives, but what happens afterwards, right? And that's love
it. So do you happen to have a copy of the book there that you can hold up to the camera?
Yeah, I do. I can.
The book is called Alone, A-L.
Yeah.
O-N-E, Alone.
I have my dog ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thriving a stroke, and it's available on Kindle and on Amazon and all that stuff.
And audio,
an audio book on Audible. Awesome. In Australia, if I bought it, it's going to cost me like $20, which is really good value. And a little bit of the blurb goes like this. It says, the frank, unapologetic memoir about a woman's struggle to start again after a devastating stroke. Stacie was living the expat dream, 3 children in central Tokyo, private school, house and travel back home, all paid for, until the morning when her carotid artery spontaneously ripped, causing blood to pool in her artery wall. Upon waking from a 10-hour surgery, Stacie couldn't walk, talk, or feed herself. Yeah, pretty dramatic. And now you're walking, talking, and I imagine your husband's not feeding you anymore.
No, I can't use chopsticks. But anyway, but I can feed myself.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing that you had to go through personally during the crisis and perhaps even after that? What was the hardest thing that you had to overcome?
I was very, very determined. I didn't like being in the wheelchair, so I would secretly, I would grab anything, my IV stand, my mother, the hospital, the things that you have on that wall to help people like me.
The handrails.
Yeah, that one. And I was so motivated. I would walk to the bathroom when no one was watching. So I was super motivated. The hardest thing, some things I did without now looking back, like I showered alone in the hospital. I mean, that's for me now, looking back, I'm scared about this. I actually would do this by myself. So I think the scariest thing was my sheer, I don't know, that's a good question.
The hardest thing. So there's not something that stands out that was so hard for you that you had to fight to overcome, that was hard for you to experience or to deal with, or did you just take it? Sounds like you took it all in your stride, which is fine. The answer doesn't have to be that there was something.
I think the thing that I still, in terms of what I can't do, that I did before, I've generally just forgot it because I'm not working on it. So I can't do simple math. Like someone asked me, how long did you live in Switzerland before you moved to Tokyo? And I knew that we arrived in Switzerland at 2004, and I knew we left in 2017, but I couldn't, and I still can't do the math. So, but it's not important to me to work on this. So I've really left all these things behind. I think now I know, now that I'm talking about it, the hardest part for me still today is, like last night we went out to celebrate my birthday. It's not my birthday, but it was a late celebration of my birthday. And all the chatter from everyone, if I know what to say, it doesn't come out. And that is a feeling of connection that's lost. And we're human beings, we're meant to connect. So I think that is the hardest part for me. Although I don't look at it, I'm not saying, oh, poor me.
Yeah.
I have a very positive attitude about it because it'll come back in some way. If I work on it, which I am working on it, but that for me is the hardest. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Now that for me is the hardest part. Like even being at dinner with my family, if I want to say something, and they're brilliant, they've been rock stars through the whole thing, but they will sit and wait for me, and then I'm like, and it won't come out. And they're amazing. And sometimes if I look at them, they know, okay, I can fill in the blanks. Or if I don't look at them, they know. But it's hard, and people don't know how to react to that either, right? So so it's this feeling of connection. I've still connected because everyone has been. I have very few skeptics, and if I do have some skeptics that I run into, whatever, we all have them. But I find myself very lucky. but keeping up with the conversation, or interjecting and adding to the conversation, sometimes, yeah, listening is better.
Yeah. So you've become a really good listener as a result.
I guess so.
It sounds like you loved to get involved with the conversation and let people know
I
what
do.
you think. Yeah.
I used to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I understand. I meant to ask you before I went on to this part, I meant to ask you actually about the book and what is it about? Tell me how it came to be and how long did it take to write?
So it took me, I finished my book last summer, so it took me about 2.5 years. And it is about the first year of recovery. So it's detailed out, week 1, week 2. But it's not about my recovery. It's about the transformation, as we were talking about before, that's happened in this first year of recovery. It's meant to tell people everything that you're feeling is okay, that I see you, that we all see you, and don't let the demons get to you, because it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to, have your sister hang up on you. It's okay to throw, all your toys out of the pram, and yeah, but it's better the next day or not. You have to get back up and try it again, So that's, I when I first went to one of my scheduled MRIs appointments back in the hospital in Japan, I asked my doctor, how long would it take to get back to normal? And the answer was wishy-washy and whatever. And then I realized that normal is not a thing, What? So I'm not looking to recover 100%. I'm looking to transform into Stacy 2.0 and see where that leads me. And yeah, I was very sad to not get everything back. I thought to myself, I want to do this, I want to do that, but actually, no, I just want to experience it and to enjoy the transformation. So that's what my book is about. Long story short, this transformation that I've experienced.
That's lovely, because if you go back to normal, what was before, you're going to be that person who didn't really pay attention to other people, who was rude or abrupt or whatever you were, that you didn't realize was a negative trait of yours, that you excused because you made it the other person being wrong or the problem. And that's not a nice place to go back to. This is a better place, even though you went through all this stuff. You're at a better place. Everything about it is better. And I'm speaking to you, but I'm hoping the people listening and watching hear me speaking to them, and they are getting that story and going back to quote unquote before, or going back to quote unquote normal. That's really it's a path to a less evolved version of you, even though you feel injured. That place before that was a lesser evolved version of you, and you've grown even though you feel injured from the thing that happened in your head.
Absolutely. I think, we all are this not the same person that we were before our strokes. We've all evolved. Even my husband, for instance, he has evolved. We all are evolving. So why would you want to go back to where you were 3 years ago or 5 years ago? So I think that's how I look at it. That's, we are all evolving every day, every month, every year. So when you say back to normal, well, what is normal then? Right? So, normal is something that you, well, A, it doesn't exist, but B, if you strive to be normal, I think it's a losing battle, right?
Yeah. And you're de-evolving. And We
Yeah.
don't want to be doing that. We want to be gaining some wisdom from somewhere in our lives. Well,
Yeah.
here's an opportunity to practice wisdom and your philosophy, and ask some questions you never asked before that maybe you didn't know you needed to ask, but now they are necessary because you can discover some stuff about yourself that you didn't know was possible. And just look at me and Stacy. I'm doing a podcast, writing a book. You've written a book, and these are things that my 37-year-old self before the stroke had no intention ever of getting completed, started. There weren't even a conversation in my mind, because what I was doing was I was living in fear, and I was afraid of being myself and expressing myself at the risk of somebody judging me, and then me not knowing how to deal with judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I can only agree. And
and stroke
that.
and stroke kind of gives you that opportunity to go, I don't give a shit what people think anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I sometimes I struggle with, like, when I was writing my Instagram title, writer. I'm like, am I a writer? Can I say that? Then you fake it until you make it, right?
Yeah.
Or now.
Yeah. You have to identify as a writer to write. If you don't identify as that, you can't sit down and write. Now, at some stage, it's going to feel foreign and weird and new. It's like new shoes. You put them on and it's like they're a bit strange. But then later they become part of your foot and you don't notice them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how the identity molds. It molds from being the person who you labeled yourself as before. You labeled yourself as a mum, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a sister. And now you're just adding another new label to your bow of beautiful things that you are and do. And why not be a writer? A writer, and get it out of your head. If you're thinking about being a writer and you're listening to this, get it out of your head that a writer has to be published by a big publishing house or have a big deal or whatever, or have sold a certain amount of books. Absolutely not. A writer is somebody simply who writes things, and that's it. If you identify as a writer, and if somebody asks you what kind of a writer you are, you can elaborate then. You don't have to elaborate until that point in time. And if they ask you, what have you written? You can say, I've written my memoir. That'll do.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Full stop. I fully agree.
That could be one of the most important things you've written, your memoir.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now I have to add the title, motivational speaker. So that's my next, my next goal.
Beautiful. I love that. That's a beautiful way to move from previous self, new identity, transforming identity, and into this other space, public speaker, because it does come with the book. It is necessary to promote the book. It is necessary to appear on podcasts, to do all these things, because that's how people will relate to you and then receive your book and understand why it's written and get to be able to, relate to the words in those pages. They can't do it if you write it, put it on the bookshelf and never release it and never tell anyone about it.
Absolutely. But it's scary, right? It's so scary. I just had a video interview with Philips Healthcare. And that was one of the most scary. I think I would even be scared if I didn't, if I could get my words out properly. They came to my house. They had a camera crew and whatever. And it was all for the World Stroke Day, which is happening at the end of this month. And it was really difficult for me to get my words out, but so I could, to tell my story, to raise awareness and all these things. But it was very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a first time, and every first time is a bit weird, but then it gets easier and easier. And I remember also having been involved in some campaigns here for the Australian Stroke Foundation.
Yeah.
And again, they turned up with camera crews to my house and all this stuff. And me and my wife were at home going, what the hell's going on? There was 40 people in our house. It's a little house. Doesn't fit 40 people. But they were there and they filmed for 7 hours to get 90 seconds. And I was like,
it's
wow.
intimidating.
Yeah. It's so much equipment, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. And it's like, this guy, Bill, it was never the guy that did that stuff. I don't do that stuff. I don't get on TV and raise awareness about stroke or anything. I don't do that stuff. But it was scary and fun, so much fun.
Yeah.
And the feedback was great because, as you know, the people who don't get stroke or who are around you that know you had a stroke, but they don't really understand, of course, they want to see the video once you tell them you've done it. And that helps raise stroke awareness directly to the family members who you want to protect, right? And that's how you do it in this unique way.
And the ball starts rolling and the circle is round. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
You have to show up.
Well done, Stacie. I really appreciate you reaching out. Thank you so much for reaching out and being on the podcast. If people wanted to find out a little bit more about you, where would they go?
So staciebroek.com is where my hub. So I have everything there. You can also visit me on Instagram or LinkedIn, Stacie Broek as well. Not Stacy Pants, Stacy Broek. And if you want to watch the video that we just talked about, you can watch it on the World Stroke Organization or Philips website. But that you have to wait until October 29th to see. Yes. Or you can also see it on my website.
Brilliant. Thanks. Well, we can't wait. Well, we're going to definitely share all your links to people. They can go to recoveryafterstroke.com episodes, find your podcast episode. I think it's going to be 220, and they can find the links in the show notes, and then they can connect with you there. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was really nice. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. To learn more about my guests, including their links to social media and other pages, and to download a full transcript of the entire interview, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. If you would like to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you are watching on YouTube, comment below the video, like the episode, and to get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show and hit the notifications bell. Sharing the show with family and friends on social media will make it possible for people who may need this type of content to find it easier, and that may make a massive difference to someone that is on the road to recovery after their own experience with stroke. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the comments and the support. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.